Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Whip Butter. It's your girl Ashley. If this was your first time here, welcome to my channel. So today we are doing a beginner friendly recipe video for a butter vanilla pound cake. I've had a request in my group, Black People's Pound Cakes. You can join me over there on Facebook. Anyone and everyone is welcome to join, about how to make a beginner friendly pound cake. A lot of people don't know, they haven't had anyone to teach them. And I have videos for every single pound cake that's on my website, but they're not in real time. They're always, edited, sped up a little bit, you know what I mean? Just so people don't get tired from watching the video, especially since there may be people who aren't beginners. But today, this is only for the beginners. So here is our cake right here. Our butter vanilla pound cake. I kept it basic, y'all. No icing. I could have dusted it with powdered sugar. I didn't want to make it too complicated. Just cake. Only cake for this recipe. If you're a little bit more advanced, you can obviously, dust it with powdered sugar, add a glaze. I have, several of those different options on my website or on my YouTube channel if you want to go take a look. But I want to let y'all know that Whip a Light Butter merch is now live. You can go to whipalightbutter.shop. I'll include a link in the description box below. And you can also shop the merch right here on my YouTube channel. Now, y'all, I had some issues that I had to try to work out to try to get the pricing right, because some of the pricing is wrong. So if you're interested in purchasing the merch, please just click into the item that you want to make sure that you actually see the correct price. I apologize. I had tried to work it out with the company. We haven't resolved the issue yet, but we're working on it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it so we can whip a light butter. Let's go. Okay, y'all, hope you got your tea in a comfortable chair because this will be a little lengthy video, so here we go. So we're going to start off by measuring our all-purpose flour. This is gold medal, and we have our sifter right here ready to go. So I'm using a half a cup measuring cup because my container, as you can see, it's pretty narrow. So we're going to go in here with our first cup, and then we're going to sift it, and I'm going to sift everything 1 cup at a time. Alright, so I like this old school sifter. You can find it in my Amazon store. The link is in the description box, because all you do is just turn the wheel. Now, another popular one is the battery operated, but the kind that you squeeze, I've had one and I didn't like it. So I do have to tap on this one a little bit just to make sure that everything goes to the bottom so it can go get sifted. But I mean, it's fine. It's a small thing to have to do, and I enjoy using it. So you just keep through the same process. We're using 3 cups of flour for this recipe. So we're going to do this a total of 3 times in the sifter, but we're going to scoop the flour 6 times. So keep in mind, I'm only using a half a cup measuring cup. Now, another method that you can use to add your flour into your measuring cup is to actually spoon the flour into your measuring cup so it's not packed, and then to use a knife, the back of a knife, and level off the top of your measuring cup and then add it into the sifter. It's completely up to you. I do it this way. If you're new, the other method that I just mentioned may be helpful. And what you can do, I don't measure my flour twice, but for absolute accuracy, to make sure that you have 3 cups of flour, you can measure as we're doing here, and then measure again once you've gotten done sifting all of the flour, to make sure that you have a total of 3 cups of flour. Now, if you're going to measure your flour after sifting, please scoop your flour into your measuring cup with a spoon and then level it off. You don't want to pack it because you just sifted it so it can be finer, right? So you don't want to turn around and pack it, which is going to compress it all together, which is going to defeat the purpose, okay? And this is our last cup of flour that we're sifting for our butter vanilla pound cake. Okay, and so after we sift our flour, we're going to move on to our next step, which is to add in our baking powder, which includes its own built-in leveler inside the can. So we're just using a half a teaspoon, and we're measuring off our baking powder, and I'm just going to go ahead and toss it in there with the flour. You can sift it with the flour. It's definitely personal preference, but I'm just going to go ahead and toss it in there with the flour, and then we're going to measure our salt. We're going to use a half a teaspoon as well and level the top of that once we have all the salt added into the half a teaspoon measure, and level off the top of that with the knife as well. And like I said, you can go ahead and sift everything together, your flour, your baking powder, and your salt. It's my preference just to do it separately. It's just kind of like when I remember, so it doesn't matter. So then I go in and just kind of fluff and mix the baking powder and the salt into the flour. You can also use a whisk. All right, and so we're going to set that to the side, and we're going to get ready to measure our sugar. Now again, we're using a half a cup measuring cup, and we're just going to do the same thing. We're going to scoop and we're going to level off the top, and then we're going to add into our bowl. So we're going to scoop a total of 4 times because we're using 2 cups of sugar for this recipe. All right, and just scoop and level. And if you have it under, go back in there and scoop again. Don't cut your sugar short at all. You definitely don't want to do that. And we're just using plain old granulated sugar for this recipe. I'm using Domino sugar actually for this cake. You may not have heard it before. Can't find it everywhere, but I've been wanting to try that, so I tried it for this cake. But it doesn't matter which brand, you just want to make sure it's granulated sugar. You can determine your preference as you get more into baking. Alright, so we're adding our room temperature eggs. We're using 5 whole eggs for this recipe, large eggs. So I leave my eggs on the counter in the carton like this or in a bowl to allow them to come to room temperature. Once you take them out of the refrigerator, they will have condensation on the outside of them. Usually they're at room temperature when they're completely dry on the outside and there's no condensation. That's a good indicator that your eggs are at room temperature. I crack them into the bowl to make sure we don't have any oops with our shells, and if we do, we can scoop them out. Alright, so here we are with our Butter Vanilla Emulsion. Most common vanilla extract is used in a pound cake, like just a plain pound cake these days, but I'm using this emulsion for this recipe. So here's our butter. I pressed it so you can see once you have an indentation into your butter, it's at room temperature. You want your butter to still like plop out of the paper, like I'm going to show you here whole. Some people use really mushy butter with coming to room temperature. That's not necessary. It's just enough to where you can get an indentation in the butter and you're good to go. So we're going to put this on this plate. All right, and then we have all our ingredients ready to go for this recipe. So we're using the paddle attachment. I did a poll in the group and it said that most of you all use a stand mixer. So I use a stand mixer, but you can also use a hand mixer. So we're going to start by blending our butter together. And I tried to point so you could see, but we're starting at a 1. We can do like a 1 or 2, kicking it up right here when blending our butter together, which I like to start whipping the butter together before adding the sugar, but no higher. And you can drop it down when you add the sugar or you can leave it. I just left it here, but you don't want it to be too hot either because it'll kick your sugar around in your bowl. And so I like to slowly add the sugar in. I think it definitely makes a difference on how it incorporates into the butter. So just keep slowly adding it, however slow, it works for you. Just as long as you don't dump it in there at one time, which some people do. Again, that's preference. But the main thing is to do it in this process. Add your butter. You don't have to cream your butter by itself, but add your butter, add your sugar, and then this process here where you're really giving that butter and that sugar time to cream and incorporate is the most important part. Now this is going to take a few minutes. I'm not going to talk through every single bit of this, but I wanted you to actually have a visual of seeing how the butter changes over time. And we have the mixer at a 2, and we're going to leave it at a 2 for this process because it's really fast enough. Some people, cream a little bit higher. I don't think that's necessary. Just a 1 or 2 is good. We're taking our time. All right, and then we're going to come to a point where we stop and then we scrape down the sides of our bowl. And that's here. Okay, and I like to use this rubber spatula and just push the butter and sugar mixture off of the paddle attachment as much as I can, and then scrape down the sides of the bowl like so. Okay, and then I'm gonna put the remaining on the paddle attachment. We gotta get all that seasoning in this cake. All right, and then we're gonna go ahead and turn this back on because it's not done. So you can see how it's kind of like thickening up it's getting like a little bit fluffy, but how you really know that that butter is really getting to the point is when it starts like smudging on the sides of the bowl. And you see it a little bit right here, but you'll see it smudging a little bit more. Now, as you can see, the butter and the sugar is kind of gathering along the paddle attachment. It will continue to separate along the process. If you just want to kick your mixer up just a little bit, just to get it off the middle of the attachment, you can do that too, but that's no biggie. All right, and now you can see that the butter and the sugar is starting to smudge on the sides of the bowl. That's what we need to see here, okay? But we're still not there. And a lot of people ask, like, at what point is your butter and your sugar creamed together? It is definitely a look. Some people to feel, they feel the butter and the sugar, rub it between their fingers and see if it's no longer like grainy to determine if it's done. I don't do that. It is definitely a look for me. Now here is a point where you you don't have to worry about over mixing, okay? Because that usually comes into play once you start adding your eggs, your liquid ingredients, your flour, and stuff like that. So you just want to make sure that you have a good consistency with your butter and your sugar, and you're good to go. And we're almost there. Okay, so let's go ahead and check on it. And when I raise it, you can see the difference in the texture. It's a lot more light, fluffy. The colors changed a little bit. It's got like a little hint of yellow, like a really pale yellow. It's kind of hard to tell, but the more you bake, the better you get at it, the more that you learn, okay? So I'm scraping down the sides of the bowl. And then we're going to get ready to add in our next ingredient, which is our emulsion. Now, I saw how it was slowly coming out of my little dish here. So I was like, I think I want to remeasure it so I don't leave any of that goodness behind in my bowl. I'm just being extra, I didn't have to do that. But yeah, so just add it here. And I like to pre-prep my ingredients like I showed you. You may decide, oh, I'm going to measure along the way. That's how you can overmix too, because you're trying to stop and keep up with your ingredients and measure and stuff like that. And it could be a lot to keep up with. I mean, you have more dishes to wash, but hey, just put them in the dishwasher. So we're adding our eggs one at a time to the batter. Now, I'm going to show you, we're still at this, I believe this is like a 1, no higher than a 2. But you see here, we still have like a little bit of yellowish in the batter. So I go like a brighter yellow. So I keep mixing until you don't see any ooey gooiness in the batter. I know that's really funny to say, but yeah, when you don't see any ooey gooiness in the batter and the yellow is not profound, then you go ahead and add the next egg. We want to add our eggs one at a time, mixing well after each addition. That's the rule. I don't whisk my eggs together. I don't use cold eggs. You want all of your ingredients to be as close to temperature as possible, which is why we use room temperature ingredients. So just again, take your time with this process. It doesn't, go very long. You can whip up a cake within like 15 minutes after you have all your ingredients. That's probably really, you know what? That's with prepping the ingredients and everything. About 15 minutes. That's not long at all. Okay, we're adding in our next egg here in the batter. And I like to show you all this process too because I don't know if you can tell how the batter is getting like a little bit looser as we're adding the eggs in here. It really is changing before your eyes. Kids call me a cake nerd. Okay, so we're adding in our next egg and we're almost there. We have one more egg to add. And you see that one didn't even take as much mixing as the other eggs. All right, because our batter is changing and it's a little looser. It's got that gooiness from the eggs in there. Okay, so we have our eggs mixed into the batter. So now on to our next ingredient. Alright, so it's time to finish up with our flour and our heavy whipping cream. Our heavy whipping cream, of course, is at room temperature. So you can do this in 3 parts, 4 parts, 5 parts. It doesn't matter as long as you start with your flour and you end with your flour. Okay, and so I'm using a scooper here just to make it easier. Scooped it right into the batter, and you see as it comes together, I go ahead and stop the mixer. Your batter should look like this when you're getting ready to add your liquid ingredient. Alright, so we add a little bit in there. And once it's no longer what I call like a soupy look, then we're going to go ahead and follow up with more flour. And you can stop your mixer too, like so. So you can make sure that you don't mix too much before you have opportunity to get your next ingredient together or just to add it in there. Okay? So we see we have it about blended, and then we're going to go ahead and add in some more heavy whipping cream. And we're going to keep going with this process until we're finished with our flour and our heavy whipping cream. Alright, and look at this batter transform, y'all. People always wonder where they overmix their cakes, probably in this part, especially at the very end, which we're going to talk about when we get there. But most likely in this part, probably overmixing those eggs. I don't know. People probably get impatient with the egg part. Y'all let me know in the comments. But definitely probably with this part. Alright, so we're adding in our last bit of flour. And watch y'all. We're not going to let this mix too long at all. Okay? And you see how it's already thickening up like bread almost? Alright, so I'm going to stop it. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish everything by hand. Alright, so let's go ahead and clean up all that extra batter off our paddle attachment because we can't leave no flavor. Well, if you want to go ahead and take that amount that's on your paddle attachment for, licking the bowl as you call it, like back in the day, because you don't feel like scraping off all the batter, hey, but I say go ahead and go for it, alright? And so after we do that, then we're going to go in here by hand. My bowl is pretty clean after I add the batter to my mixing bowl. And I I don't lick the batter now. Look, that's what we did as kids. We're totally not supposed to because flour is raw and eggs is raw. I just want to leave that disclaimer. But of course, some people do still do that. So we're going to start off with the edges of our bowl because that's what's important that we want to get mixed into the rest of this batter from the edges of this bowl, and then I kind of fold my batter back so I can get into the bottom of the bowl. And some may still have to mix a little bit once I get ready to pour, but those are your most important parts. So once you have it pretty much mixed well, it only takes like I don't know, maybe a minute or so. Because like I said, you don't want to over mix. Then you can stop and we're going to get ready to prepare our pan and then add our batter to our pan and bake this beautiful cake. Okay, so that's enough mixing. We're going to go ahead and get our bowl and we're going to get our tried and true Baker's Joy spray and do what? Spray the hell out of that bump pan because that's how you prevent sticking. So you want to make sure that your pan is nice and dry. So don't wash your pan right before you're getting ready to add your spray. Hold your pan slanted like I did and then just spray in a back and forth fashion. So this can, I don't know, every can is different. We had a couple of spots where it's kind of the Baker's Joy clumped up in some areas, so I just go in there with the pastry brush and brush up those parts so it's nice and smooth. And then I love putting my bump pan on this Lazy Susan. The link to it is in my description box in my Amazon store. It makes it so much easier to turn the pan as you're adding the batter to the cake. So as you can see, I'm trying to add the batter into the pan as evenly as possible. So don't add all your batter, and you see I'm mixing too because I have the little bit more of that from the bottom. Don't add your batter in one section and try to spread it around. No, add it in different sections, pour it into the pan. Some batters are looser than others. My batters tend to be a little more thick like this. And you just add it in sections. Using, as you can see, I'm scooping it. I'm still adding it in sections, filling up spaces instead of adding it in one area. Okay, and then we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna smooth the top of that cake because we can't let it bake like this. It's gonna be all lumpy and stuff like that. We're gonna smooth that batter. I'm gonna show you how. Okay, getting all that goodness off with that spatula, and then just gonna go in and spread it around. I'm kind of filling in spaces a little bit first. That's important because you can, if you don't, you're gonna cut your cake and you're gonna have areas where it's not cooked evenly because you left little clumpy spots in there. So just smooth it, smooth it. I'm trying to get into the creases and the crevices and the design of the pan as well, and then making sure that the top is as even as possible. And we're gonna place this cake in the oven, and our oven is going to be preheated at 325 degrees and bake this cake for about an hour and 15 minutes. I bake my cakes in the middle of the oven, and I'm going to show you. I usually don't show this process, me and my little process right here, but kind of in the middle of the oven. My rack is up like 3 or 4 notches in my oven. Once it's done, we're doing the toothpick test. Once it comes out clean or very little crumbs, then you know that the cake is done. Okay? And so after that, we're going to let the cake cool for about 20 minutes. And I'm going to set my cake on the cooling rack so the pan is not touching directly to any surface. So the air really has a chance to get all around this cake to allow it to cool. And after about 20 minutes, we're going to go ahead and flip it out of the pan. You see how pretty it is? Don't worry about the separation and stuff at the top. That's pound cake character. If you never made a pound cake before, that's the part of what it does. It does that, or you get a crunchy top. Okay? So, ooh, y'all ready? Voila! Y'all, it's so pretty, y'all. Oh, it's so pretty. Oh, okay. So I'm going to allow this cake to continue to cool, and then you can dust it with powdered sugar if that's what you want to do. I want to keep this video really, really basic, so I didn't do that. And here's our cut. I'm sorry, I cut it on camera, but that clip, it didn't record. All right, so here's the taste test. Hey, y'all, so I usually always tell you that I'm excited to taste the cake because obviously I am, right? But I'm even more excited because this time I used an emulsion in the cake instead of an extract. Loren's emulsion, butter vanilla flavor. So we'll see what it's talking about. Hold my eye. It gives the cake like a real subtle but infused natural flavor. Now I wasn't sure because emulsions are supposed to be more intense than extracts and the flavor is supposed to last longer. But I only use a tablespoon, and it's a subtle flavor, right? But vanilla, it's not anything strong like pineapple or anything. So it definitely complements the cake well. It goes very well with the heavy whipping cream. I really like it. Y'all know I always like the bottom of the cake. I get another bite. Okay, so another beginner's tip that I want to leave you before we close out the video. Pound cakes get better with time like beans. The seasoning gets all worked into the cake. Put your cake in its cake keeper. I actually show you mine. Keep it covered. Unless you're serving it for a party, put it in your cake keeper. Keep it covered. And if you can, save a little bit of the cake for 2 days later for you to taste it and really see the difference in the cake on day 1 versus day 2. And also, don't cut your cake while it's hot. A lot of people like warm cake. If you like warm cake, you like warm cake. But I want you to really taste the difference in the cake when you don't cut it warm and how it slices and you have that nice crumb on the cake. If y'all have any other questions, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you as always. Don't be stingy. Make sure that you share, comment, subscribe, and join us back for more over here with the Like Butter. Bye.